This is section 9.3 notes. Today we're going to start by graphing parabolas again, or quadratic functions again. So if you don't remember how to graph using Desmos, go ahead and pause this video and go to section 9-1 notes, day 2. If you do remember how to graph, you're going to want to pause this video and open a new tab and go to desmos.com. So remember, that's desmos.com. So once you're there, you're going to start by graphing these problems. So to start by graphing in Desmos, you're actually going to graph everything before the equal 0. So you're going to graph x to the second minus 1, x to the second, and x to the second plus 1. So you can graph all of those. And then on these actual sketches, you need to use the 3 points where they cross the y-axis and where they cross the x-axis. So if I take a look at the first one, x to the second minus 1, my y-intercept is at negative 1. 0, negative 1. And my x-intercepts are at negative 1 and positive 1. So I graph those 3 points, I connect them with a u, and there's the sketch of that graph. My next one only has 1 point. X to the second, it crosses at the same point for x and the y. So then from here, I'm just going to make my u. And then for the third one, again, it only has 1 point because it doesn't cross the x-axis. It starts up here at positive 1 on the y. So it starts here, and then again, I can make my u. So once we have those, we now have to worry about the equal 0 part. So this is what's new today that's different from when we graphed before. So now all these are asking, okay, what does x equal when the whole equation equals 0? So these are called solutions. So for this first one, the solutions are where the u, the parabola, crosses the x-axis. So on this first one, it crosses 2 times. So I'll have x equals negative 1, because that's where it crosses this first one. And then it goes down here, and then it comes back up and crosses at positive 1. So you'll have 2 answers for this one. X will equal negative 1 and positive 1. In the middle one, it only crosses or touches this x line once, and that's at 0. So your answer for this middle one will be x equals 0. So there's 2 solutions for the first one, 1 solution for the second one. This third one is unique in that it doesn't cross this x line at all. It starts up here at 2 on the y, or 1 on the y, and continues to go up. So it doesn't cross the x at all, so this is what we call a no solution. It does not cross the x-axis at all, so there are no solutions to this graph. Okay, so that's solving using graphing. You are perfectly fine to graph every single problem on this homework set or in the quiz or test to find your solutions. However, there is an actual easier way of doing this, and this is just using algebra to solve for x. So that's what we're going to use in problems 2 and 3. So problem 2 says, what are the solutions of 3x squared minus 75 equals 0? I could use Desmos and graph that, and I would have to sketch a graph off to the side because you have to have your work, which is the graph part of it, and then I could say what x should equal. Or I can just solve it by saying, okay, I'm going to get x by itself. So I'm going to add 75 to both sides. That gives me 3x squared equal to 75. Going to divide by 3, so I then get x squared equals 25. Now to get x by itself, if it's squared, I just have to square root. So I'll take the square root of x to the second, and I'll take the square root of 25. The square root of x to the second leaves me with just plain old x. And the square root of 25, anytime you take a square root, it's actually 5, the positive number, and negative 5. So this is a case which you'll have 2 solutions. So it would be a graph that looks like this, where they cross at negative 5 and positive 5, and it would be a U shape. Okay, so that's problem number 2. Problem number 3 says, what are the solutions of x squared plus 16 equals 0? So I'm going to use algebra again. I'm just going to subtract 16 from both sides. So I get x squared equals negative 16. Then I square root both sides. So take the square root of x to the second, which is x. Now here's where I come into a problem. I'm trying to take the square root of a negative number. Even if you use your calculator, it'll come up with an error. You cannot take the square root of a negative number. So this would be an example of a no solution problem. So if you're ever using algebra and it's asking you to take a square root of a negative number, that's going to be no solution. Okay. For the homework tonight, the directions say solve each equation by graphing. You do not need to graph if you would like to use the algebra. Okay, so you have several problems in which you can either graph or you can use algebra.